for right now. So, okay, so we are live.
Awesome.
Okay, happy Friday, everyone. We are live with Jeff Bayless, as you all know that we've had on a previous show. So welcome, Chief Bayless. Thank you for being here with us. Anything you want to put out before we get ready to show the audience as they get ready? We always like to show our little intro clip for the Leadership Within podcast. Give everybody a few more minutes to log in. So
you were probably like, hey, this guy will talk to anybody, right? The guy doesn't shut up, like just blabbermouth. So I'll reach out to him. And no, I'm just kidding. No, it's always an honor to spend time trying to help others. So I really appreciate the project and the invitation. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and show our little leadership intro, and then we'll get to we'll show everybody who didn't get the opportunity to catch your show when you were on the platform a little bit. Tell them a little bit about you. How's that sound?
Sure. Yeah. Great.
All right. Let's do it. All right.
That's so cool. How do you do that? I need you on my team for my podcast.
I know. Actually, so what we did for that clip, we had a Petty Officer Britt who does an amazing job on the side. She does this marketing little promo. So she created that for us. So it was pretty cool. So we are very grateful for doing this. So you should reach out. I'll connect you to.
Yeah, cool. I love meeting new people. So especially anybody. I started a new YouTube channel because of you, actually, and a friend of mine that has been nagging me to do some video. And so we launched that not too long ago, and that would be great to have some sort of intro for that journey to higher consciousness.
Yeah, and we'll have to talk later offline also about some thumbnails too for you.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So please share with for those again who weren't able to catch the episode that you were on with us for the Leadership Within. Feel free to introduce yourself to us. I know that you have. I just want to say that you have an amazing podcast. We are so excited for everything that you've done and everything that you continue to do forward, and greatly appreciate you because your podcast helps more than you know. A lot of us out here, a lot of people out there, and especially I would say now times where we have the COVID, the pandemic, and we don't have a lot of interaction with people. So we're all kind of going through our ups and downs. So could you share with everybody what it is that you're working on in your project?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I just jumped off another podcast where I was telling someone how much their work impacted me, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't really get a lot of that feedback, and you just keep doing it because you have good intentions and you really hope it's reaching people." And it is somewhat validating when all your hard effort that you're not making a penny on, right, is really just doing some good out in the world. So I do appreciate that, and I receive that. I would also, which is a lesson for me because I used to no, it's not that cool. I used to, but now I say, hey, I received that. Thank you for the compliment. And I guess what the project is, it's called The Evolution. And I'll kind of just do like a cliff notes, I guess, of, my life story and what kind of got me there later in the show, I guess. But what the project is public speaking, where, that's definitely slowed down because of COVID. But, for a while there, I was pretty busy flying places as well to discuss not only my, not my childhood stuff necessarily, but just kind of my career that, and some of the hardship that I had with making poor decisions, not paying attention to, not doing any introspective work is really a better way to sum it all up, right? I was very a human doing, not a human being. And so, once I got through those hard times, right? Like you shouldn't share your wounds, but you can share your scars, right? Like once you've kind of come out of the tunnel, right? It's cathartic to make an effort to help others. And that's what the project is. And so I was traveling around the fleet, just kind of very vulnerably, transparently, and authentically explaining where my failures were, where my successes were, and how, if I had maybe had a dude like me talk to me, I wouldn't have to have gone through that. Right.
Right.
So the public speaking is that, and in the Evolution podcast, I try to keep it pretty diverse, to be honest. I'm doing, that's not on accident. I try to, and I think it's great that you have podcasts that do have very linear direction, a very linear trajectory where, we're focusing on leadership, we're focusing on Navy, we're focusing on recruiting. It's good to have that. But I personally try to ensure that I keep a very diverse group. A lot of my network is Navy, right? But I'm not afraid to reach out and invite a spiritual healer on, or an empath, or a psychic. I haven't done that one yet, or a congressman, right?
And sidekick.
I would totally do it. If I knew one, I would totally do it. Like I think that, it's so easy for us because we're in the military and because we're in the Navy. It's so easy for us to get caught up in, our own, bubble of maybe your command, or maybe, the 5 people you surround yourself with. And it's really interesting to reach out and get some different perspective on, introspection. So the theme is mostly introspective work. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a professional, but it's about introspection. It's about, healing. It's about growing. And, I just try to get totally, I've had Commander Navy SEALs, I've had congressmen, I really try to vary it up to ensure that, it's well-rounded, because I don't want people to think that they have to just, do all the time, right? Or that you have to, once you're beaten down, that, that resilience piece can't come back. I like to share stories where people have really been through some stuff, and through resilience, we're able to bounce back and live a healthy, normal life, even if that means they went to the brig and got kicked out of the Navy. I've interviewed a guy that happened to him, and he's got an amazing life now, right? And and he admits all his failures. Like, hey, man, I totally did that, and I deserved what I got, and it was a good lesson, and now I'm kicking butt in life, right? So yeah. That was a long-winded answer to your question, but I'm kind of long-winded.
No, that's totally okay. And I love just hearing everything that you have to say, because that just sounds so powerful. And when you think about resiliency and what people go through, because everybody has their own stories and trials and tribulations. And when I'm going through, and I won't forget, like, I remember being on deployment, and then, in the military, we work with all types of people, right? Different personalities, different backgrounds, characters. And there's just some people sometimes in life, no matter where you are, that you're going to come in contact with, and you may not get along with or have that same vision or agree with certain things, right? Especially when it comes to work. You have to work together. And I remember praying one day, and I said this out loud, and one of the guys that I was working with, first class, and I was third class at the time, he says, as he's hearing me say, "Oh Lord, I pray for patience." And he said, and I will never forget, he said, and I keep this in mind when I ask for things or I'm praying about things, is he says, "Be careful what you pray for, because when you're praying for patience, you're praying for trials and tribulations," and that just dawned on me as like, okay, so we all have like things that we're going through. So I'm going like a rabbit hole, but hold on. Before we officially kick off, I do have to mention that as you're tuning in, you're probably looking around and you're like, where's Master Chief Rodney? So to our regular viewers, to our viewers who are just tuning in, I do want to say that Master Chief Rodney, he wasn't able to make it. He had some other engagements that came up that he had to see to. But if he's able to jump on at any time while we're on, you may have a surprise visitor. So a familiar face. And another thing that I want to put out that we usually always do on our shows is, I don't have the verbiage here, but I'm just going to summarize it. And that is that Chief Bayless and I, myself, Veronica Scott, Chief Jeff Bayless, we are here as individuals, and we're not here to, everything that we say and our opinions are of our own, and we do not represent any Navy, DOD, or any organization. So I just want to put that out there as our viewers tune in. Catalina, thank you for tuning in. And while you guys are joining us, please feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube at this time. And we know that some of you are from all over across the nation and the world. So we would love to hear where you're actually tuning in from. And while you're on there, don't forget to like, subscribe, so that way you don't miss any future episodes. So thank you for that.
I think it's interesting that, we kind of do have to say that, and it's a responsible thing. And we should say that, these views, we don't represent the Navy, or, we just represent ourselves. But if you really think about that, that's kind of deep, right? Like, if you actually think about that, you should embody that and take that forward with everything you're doing. You do, I guess, we wear the uniform, and like we say with Sailors Go on Liberty is, you're an ambassador for the Navy, right? So,
right.
Make sure you're squared away. Like, I don't want to have to get shore patrol after you or anything, right? But, it is important to keep that peace and hold the space for yourself where, these are your opinions and there are your views, and that's okay. It's okay to have that voice. It's okay to, express your, responsibly, right? I mean, I'm not going to come on here and say a bunch of cuss words or, talk about movements in the world that, I'm not going to get too political and stuff like that. But, I just want to encourage people that, that made me think of the idea that, you are entitled to have, your own personality, your own voice, your own thoughts, your own shares, your own vulnerability. Like, you can have all that and still be in uniform. In fact, I would encourage it. Like, that's what we need, is more diversity, more people finding their voice, more people willing to say, I love it when a sailor says, hey boats, actually, I think the PMS card says this. I'm like, thank you, shipmate. Like, thank you for having a voice. Like, I would have done that incorrectly. Like, thank you, so it's good to have a voice, and you don't always have to represent the Navy just because you have opinions, thoughts, and,
Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. And what's so interesting is, if you think about what you just said, and how powerful is it if you, while, keeping that in mind, that you are a sailor in and out of uniform, right?
Yep.
And then you have your own opinions, your own views. But how much more powerful is that if you knew how to use it in the right way?
Oh, right.
Because people could say, and I've seen it before, sailors on their own personal platforms or social media pages, on their pages, right? Either posting things that could be borderline inappropriate, or going live and doing things or saying things inappropriate. And it's like, what? It's my personal page. But how powerful would you be if you expressed yourself in an articulate type of way, or a way that leaves a certain type of impact that's more impactful?
Sure.
So I think that we can do that, but it all really depends on the way that you do it as well, to take into consideration. Absolutely. For sure.
Definitely got to be responsible. I think too, you should focus on impact over influence, right? Like, you really want to have, let something positive out there, right? And ensuring that you are, mindful of what you're doing, and just not being afraid. So with that, I would say, just dip your toe in the chaos a little bit, right? Like, maybe you don't do the cannonball or what's that movie where Rodney Dangerfield does the dive, like the quadruple flip or whatever, back to school, right? So maybe you don't do the super duper, super duper dive. Like, maybe you just kind of dip your toe in the chaos a little bit and see how that grows. Start a small project to try to, if your intentions are pure, I think it'll shine through. If I think if people thought I was fake, I don't think anybody would listen to my podcast, because it's not. Nobody wants to listen to somebody tell you what to do, or to just sell you a bunch of stuff, right? Or listen to some sort of nonsense, right? But if your stream of consciousness is trying to reach a higher level of consciousness and then trying to benefit others, I really feel like that's how communication and trust and all these things. That's how we level up. But you kind of have to dip your toe in the chaos first, right? Like, don't just cannonball into it. And I don't know, sometimes that may be helpful if you're feeling comfortable, but if you're not, if you're not comfortable about doing it, which I was not. I was afraid, right? Like I had trepidation about starting a podcast or doing live videos or sharing my thoughts and ideas, right? Well, I just kind of dipped my toe in, and then now I'm all over the place, right? So
yeah, how many episodes are we at now?
I think 72. I think today was 72. Yeah. So
wow, you have 72 right now?
Well, I can't tell you how many I've deleted that were solos because it sucked when I first started.
So you deleted some of the beginners, like
yeah,
really?
Because they were like on my cell phone with like headphones. There was like noise. So, and I think too though that that I try to keep the raw vulnerability there. I try to keep that transparency there. And the other thing that you mentioned earlier that I think is important to highlight and maybe expound upon for the audience is that you kind of mentioned that you're not alone, right? And I think I might have even discussed that on the last show I was on. But we're all going through some sort of struggle, right? Whether it's COVID, whether it's recruiting numbers, whether like for me right now, I'm struggling with the anxiety of transitioning out of the Navy that I love so dearly, right? Like that's a real time, right in the moment. That is a true anxiety that I have, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm not having it. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't have a tumultuous but also rewarding and successful career that I'm sad to leave. I really am. Like, I mean, I look at my arms. It's like Navy, right?
Yeah.
I love the Navy, man. And so I have to remind myself, and I think it's important to the listener, or the viewer, we're all going through something, right? And don't discredit that. Don't dismiss it. Don't coughin it up. Don't compartmentalize it. Go ahead and, just be in the uncomfortability. And I think that helps when you can just kind of sit in it and recognize that it is happening. And then also recognize that it's only a season, right? Like a year from now, I'm going to look at this transition out of the military and say, what was I freaking out about? Like, look at this great. Like I've got multiple opportunities. Like, what was I so worried about? Right. But it doesn't stop the feelings from coming up. And I think it's good. A lesson that I've learned, and people can go back to the last show, but a lesson that I learned through my trauma was that I bottled everything up until it exploded, right? Exploded in a very negative way and sent my life into a negative trajectory where I was contemplating suicide every single day. Wow. Every single day. It's like, is today the day, right? So when those emotions come up, when those feelings come up, it's okay to have them. It's okay to sit in them. It's okay to cry. It's okay to reach out and talk to someone. It's okay to say, hey, I'm scared, or I'm afraid, or maybe I'm not afraid. Maybe that's not a good word, but I had a little bit of anxiety about this thing. And I just have to sit in it and know that it's a season like everything else. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we like. So being in Navy recruiting, or even being a mother, a friend, a mentor, whenever we're talking to, and from my experience, whenever I'm talking to somebody, and I have to remind myself as well, that whenever I go through a situation in life and it's not pleasant, it sucks, right? Or it's a bad situation, I have to remind myself, and I say this to those as well, is that it's just temporarily, just as you're saying, it's just a season. It won't last forever,
Yep.
But we all do have all those things. Like, we all have our own story. We all have things that we go through in life. So I know that today, like some of the viewers that are tuning in, they're like, I thought you guys were going to be talking about the previous guest and opening it up to discussion. So I do want to thank, I do want to thank Catalina from tuning in from Pensacola, and Toya from Virginia, for those areas. Again, if you're just tuning in, please feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from. We always enjoy that. We're giving shout outs. If you have any questions about whether it's mental health, being in the Navy, transitioning out of the Navy, any previous guests that we have, any leadership quotes that you want to throw up, any of your favorite leadership books or books that you would like to recommend that resonate with you and they're pretty impactful or powerful to you, we'd love to hear about those too. So it's pretty much an open discussion today. Going forward, we're just going to be on for about 30-45 minutes the most, and we'd like to hear from you, our viewers out there that are tuning in, what might be on your mind today, or things that are happening in the world as well. So we open this up for all of you to join us as well.
Open kimono. Yeah, come at me. Come at me, bro.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you, and you don't have to answer it, but I'm just wondering. So we're talking about you transitioning out of the military, right? It does sound pretty scary. So I have about 5 years, and I'm like, oh, at the time that I am right now, and I think a lot of sailors can relate, or anybody in the military can relate to, where okay, I got this countdown going on. Can't wait to retire. Looking forward to it. 10 more years, 5 more years, 3 more years. Oh, I can't wait, right? But when you get to that point, it's kind of like a senior in high school, right? You can't wait to be a senior to graduate from high school, but then that's around the corner. Here it comes. What's that feeling like? What you talked about anxiety, like, is there like, do you have a plan for what you're going to do afterwards? Does that help, settle in some of the anxiety or
Yeah,
the feelings?
I think that's a great question. And I think that, what I'm experiencing now, a lot of people experience with different things like an ESWAS board or, something that, is going to be kind of a jumping off point, right? Like it's going to be a cliffhanger, I guess is a way to explain it. You're going to have to jump into that sailor of the quarter board, or you're going to have to, whatever that hard thing is. And kind of what I've always tried to do, at least, is when something scares me, I do it anyway, right? Just do it anyway. And then on the other side of that, you'll have that earned wisdom, and so, yeah, it is a process. I'm not going to say that, it doesn't happen instantly where you accept it. I'm kind of, are you familiar with the phases of, or the stages of grief, right? Like there's denial, anger, right? And then acceptance, and then you pay it forward. And, don't quote me on that, Google that, but it's something like that. I've done the research.
Right.
It's very similar. There's like denial, like that's not really going to happen. It's too far away. Then there's like acceptance. Oh crap, it's right here, right now. And then, yes, when you start to see the opportunities that open up, then it's a little bit easier to, I think to another point of that is, it's so hard when you're a control freak, right? And sometimes being a control freak can really help you out in the Navy, right? Do this, do that, land that helicopter, launch that boat, turn left, turn right,
Sure.
all engines ahead full. Like you can be a control freak. There are some things in your life you just can't control, and your service is going to come to an end. It is. Either one way or the other. Either you're going to get out or you're going to die. But either way, I don't mean to be morbid, but there's only, either you're going to get out of the Navy or you're going to quit living. Like that's it. So there is a life outside of after, right? And even though, it was 4 years or 20 years, those are all earned wisdom. Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Even if you only did 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 years, it wasn't a waste of time. You earned a lot of wisdom that you can share from your experience and apply it to your next chapter, your next season. And that's really what I remind myself is, I wanted to do a life in the Navy, and that didn't work out for me. I'm retiring at 20 years. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And it's not about me. It's about the sailors I've led and the people I've mentored and, all the great accomplishments we've done for the country. However, it's out of my control. I cannot control it. And that's a hard thing to understand when you're in the military and your mindset is like, I can control this evolution, or I can control these numbers, or I can control this ship. Like I've driven aircraft carriers in the middle of the Persian Gulf. I was in control, right? Like I made the decision to raise a hangar, to launch an FA-18, right? And, when you get to that point where you're not in control, you just kind of have to release control and have faith in your, you have hard skills and soft skills, right? And so, your hard skill right now might be bosumating or recruiting, but like you have a lot of soft skills. Like you're a great communicator. You're great with, networking, with social media, with, you have all of these soft skills that you really don't think about because right now you might be in a season of just focusing on your actual job. But I'll challenge you to consider like most Navy SEALs, right? They can't get out of the Navy and go deploy like they used to do. There is no suitable. I mean, you can do contract work, right? But when a Navy SEAL gets out of the military, they have to immediately pivot to something else. They have to, right? Because they can't keep that job. And so that's a good frame of reference for all of us, right? Like there is a job that's pretty lined up with Bosunmate for me, but it's going to be different. It's not going to be Navy. You know what I mean? It's similar, but not the same. So I just think we have to welcome that, and don't undervalue your soft skills is kind of what I was trying to get at. You have very good soft skills that make you special, honestly, make you desirable, make you employable, and just, make you want to be around other people or make other people want to be around you. So don't discredit your soft skills.
That's so sometimes hard, I would say, to do. I'm thinking about that as you're talking, and I'm thinking we get so wrapped up with the day-to-day task and things that we have to accomplish. And is sometimes so involved, like just a perpetual type of, every day, okay, got this going on, got to do this, next day, got to do this, that we don't get to take a step back and look at those other things like you're talking about, these soft skills, because we're so focused on this task, or on this job or on this position. And I'm just thinking, like, you're getting ready to transition out. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's so wrapped up in their job and not thinking about how it's going to impact them, or what's going to happen after they get out of the military or after they retire, whatever amount of years that it is,
Yeah, I would say, we're all our worst critic, right? I know I am. I'm very hard on myself. I'm working through it. One of the hardest things for me is to love and accept myself. In fact, that's one of the mantras that my therapist has me work through, is anything that I think of as a negative thing. So it's a little corny, but it's like a tapping thing where I don't really.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
So it's like, it's based on acupuncture, and you tap these parts of your body and you repeat the same mantra, and it's a little corny and it's a little woo-woo, but I'll tell you, it helps. So you pick something that is scary or negative. I'm afraid of doctors, but for example, I'll just say, I'm afraid of getting out of the Navy because I love it so much.
Right.
Okay. Well, you do the tapping and you say it every time. And then you say, and, not but, not or, but, and I love and accept myself. Right. And that's the hardest thing to do, is just love and accept yourself. So, the idea is, okay, I understand that this is a scary thing, or this is a hard thing, or whatever, but you know what? I love and accept myself, and whatever happens is probably going to be good because I love and accept myself.
I love that.
Yeah, I did too. That's not mine. I mean, that's not a Jeff Bayless thing. That's just something I've learned. Yeah.
I've heard about tapping, and I remember watching, it was like years ago though. A friend of mine, she was telling me about it. She was going through our time in life and that it helped her out. And I looked it up, and it was like exactly what you're saying. But so for that mantra, is it after everything that you either fear that you're going through, and I love and accept myself?
Right. So whatever comes up, whatever trauma you're going through, excuse me, whatever hardship you have, whatever you're afraid of, whatever you don't like, my dog peed on the carpet, and I love and accept myself. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it can be something as small as that, or it could be something as crazy as, like, hey, I was sexually abused as a kid and that affected me for the rest of my life, and I love and accept myself. You know what I mean? Hey, I had a pretty traumatic experience in the military, and I love and accept myself through that, right? Not in spite of it, right? Not even because of it, but just in it, right? Because it is me. It's those scars give you the wisdom and the ability to, if you allow it, right? If you learn from it, and if you do, when you know better, you do better, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you love and accept yourself, which, hey, I don't want to be a hypocrite and say I've got it all figured out. Like, I'm going through it too. Like, it's really hard for me. My first reaction is, anxiety and self-criticism, right? Like, I need to do better, right? So I just think it's helpful, in any time you're going through a hardship or you're transitioning, especially when you're in such a community like the Navy is, to love and accept yourself and just be okay with, whatever season you're going through. And I'm going through a season right now. I'm sure you are as well, right? I mean, we all are. You just moved, right? I mean, there's a lot of challenges that I think I talked about the hero's journey too. And it's kind of like, I talked about having an end state. Most people in the military are probably familiar with this, but like, you have an end state, which is key tasks and purpose, right? If you have that end state in mind, that's great. Knowing that, okay, I got to retire and get a job, right? Or, I want to launch this podcast and I want it to be successful. Or, you made some hard decisions in your, podcast stuff that you share with me, right? And so, with each decision on either side, there's a consequence. But on the other end of that, you of whatever thing that you probably can't control, there are some things you can and some you can't. But on the end of that, you just have to love and accept yourself. And it's a challenge, but it's a season. You can do it.
I'm gonna have to remember that. But I love and I accept myself.
That's it. Yeah,
I love that.
Again, it's real easy to say, and the easiest things to say are sometimes the hardest things to embody, right?
Yes.
And another thing that keeps coming up for me, which I think is relevant or hopefully helpful, is that it's very hard when you rationally know something to be true, right? So you may rationally know that it's not, maybe normal, or that, this isn't serving anyone, or it's rationally, that it's not normal for me to worry about my doors being locked all the time, right? That's not, I mean, it's, of course we should lock our doors and stuff, but if you take it to a not normal level of caution, right? You can rationally know that, but it can be hard to embody. And what I mean by that is like actually believe it, right? Like actually act on that. And so with that, I would say, even if you can't embody it or believe it in your center, but you understand that it's not a rational behavior. I hate to say fake it till you make it, because that's not a good way to go about things. But mood does follow action, and you can behave your way into a habit, right? This has been proven, the power of habits. There's a lot of books on habits. If you behave your way into an action, it will eventually become your truth. And that comes with self-talk too. However you are talking to yourself, it reaffirms a positive feedback loop. So if you're telling yourself that you're not worthy and you're not loved and you're not good enough, guess what you're going to believe?
Those true. What you think is true. Yes, absolutely. That also reminds me of Laws of Attraction. Did you ever see any of those videos or read the book of Laws of Attraction?
I read the book. Yep.
The same type of thing. That is exactly what it reminds me of.
It's mirroring, right?
Exactly. And then even that even goes with as a parent, or for myself with my kids, because of society, because of social media, and sometimes just some of the negativity that it could draw, or how it can make teenagers fail. I have teenagers, so they go on Instagram and they look at these photos and look at all these photos, but they know it's a filter photo. It might be somebody that they look at and they're like, I wish I could look like that, or I wish I had, this or that, right? But they're not realizing how materialistic that is. So they have a different mindset, right? So then they're kind of down and they're hard on themselves. And you think, just negative thoughts that come to mind. I feel like social media it's not as healthy as I wish it could be, especially for our younger generation, because
how old are your kids?
So the youngest, I have twins that are 15, and then I have a 17-year-old, and then I have one that's away in college in his third year. Okay. But when I hear the comments or some of the things that they're talking about when they're looking at social media, like I didn't get this many likes, or I have this many followings, and they're hooked on those numbers or what they look like as compared to what somebody on social media might look like. So I try to, even more so when we talk about the words and being positive and how powerful that those are to hear, I make it a point, and I put an extra effort because of that, to tell my children, you are beautiful, or you're so smart, or just because I feel like if they don't hear that, then they may not believe that themselves, because of the negativity that they have in their minds and that we as humans sometimes do to ourselves. So I just think it's like powerful to hear from other people as well as we tell ourselves. But you're absolutely right. I think the key to that is telling ourselves, like when we look in the mirror, we see ourselves in the mirror. And I've seen people put Post-its of all these positive affirmations that they could say to themselves in the morning, just to intake all that positive to start their day with.
Yeah. I think we're probably the last generation of humans that grew up without the internet. Right. And so, this is the new norm, where everyone is going to know that, the internet is out there, social media is out there, and a lot of the disillusion of the ego is, the ego is I don't mean ego as in cocky. I mean, ego is, how you see yourself. When you look in the mirror, if you have dysmorphia, body dysmorphia, or, image dysmorphia, where you see yourself, my wife tells me, I'm a very handsome man, and I look at myself and I'm like, well, I could lose a couple pounds on there. Like, I used to have 6-pack abs, and that's not really what, but I think I have a pretty healthy level with it now. But what you have these, you're seeking validation is what I'm trying to get at, right? And so, the validation always feels good, and that feeds your ego, that feeds your I, right? When you paid me a compliment, it kind of fed my ego, right? But so I think it's good to receive validation, right? Like you're talking about with your kids, it's good to tell them, like, hey, you are that's a filter, and you are a handsome man. Like, don't seek the validation for the likes, shares. I mean, we want this message to go out to people to help them, but it's not because we're trying to get famous, or because, if this doesn't get 10,000 views and the other one got 4,000 views, like that's okay. Like less is still something. Don't abandon ship. Don't surrender. Less, if you only reach one person, that's a good thing without the requirement of seeking validation. That's a hard, because it's a balance beam, right? It's like, well, I want to feel good.
Yes.
But I don't want to get so wrapped up in requiring that validation that, when I don't get it, then I have this expectation, and expectations are super dangerous. I always say, definitely in the military, I try to say standards. I don't say expectations anymore. I used to, but now I don't say I have expectations, because if expectations aren't met, that causes a lot of animosity and a lot of anger, or a lot of anxiety, or a lot of, that didn't meet my expectations. I expected this to go this way, and then the weather went to crap and I couldn't do it. Right. Or whatever that thing is, it could be personal or military or professional or whatever your genre. Mm-hmm. But when those expectations aren't met, then you're all upset. Right. So, have standards and enforce those standards. And then when those standards aren't met, course correct, pivot, and make sure that, we're bringing that sailor up to those standards, or we're bringing this mission back up to the standards of where it was supposed to be. Because if you have an expectation, you're going to be super hard on yourself or those around you.
That kind of also reminds me of the shall and should. When you put like a shall, it must be, right? And then when you put the should, it's like, well, you should. So it sounds like the same type of thing. That's a really good point, because I didn't think about that, because I find myself saying expectations, or here are our expectations. So especially when I talk to my kids, now that we're talking about kids, I'll make sure to keep note of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to have some expectations, but, don't focus in on it too hard, because you're really trying to enforce a standard, right? You're trying to impact, not influence. You're trying to, set something high bar that, and what I've learned is, whatever that standard is, whatever that bar is, mm-hmm. most sailors will meet that, So if your standard is here and your bar is here, they'll meet that. Like, hey man, it's okay if you only get the east-west pin and don't get the air pin. That's what they're going to do. But if you say, hey, I want all of my sailors to be dual qualified before the end of deployment. That's my standard, right? And then if everybody doesn't make that, I didn't have an expectation where I'm disappointed or beating myself up as a leader that not everybody followed my charge, right? But I had the standard. Most of them met it. My expectations secondary to my standards.
Amazing point. So I love that. And I love that how you said, and I actually even put it up here on let me show you, because you probably can't see the comments that I posted, but I love that so much, the impact over influence.
Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of these, this is interesting too, because, we say in the Navy, plagiarism is authorized. Like, I don't know where some of this stuff comes from, but it's, I don't think that's mine. I think I probably got that from a book, or maybe Jordan Peterson. I don't know, but I don't want to take credit for it, because somebody said that to me and I was like, ooh, that's really good. Like,
yeah. I might use it a few months later, and then we're like,
90% of my content and ideas are like, oh, that's a good idea, and like, let me add to that, like, so we're all mirrored, right? That's how it works.
I'm gonna use that. So thank you for that. And then I just wanted to point out, Jessica, she's tuning in with us. Thank you. And she just mentioned that today was Family Friday for all of us. It made her think earlier in the show when we were talking about the day, that it made her think of all the extended family that she met in the Navy. And she has so many family in so many states. Oh my gosh, that is so much like another topic too.
I can do a whole podcast on that.
I know. Okay. And then as a recruiter, it's like, you just think about all the different things and the presentations that I've had, or that I've talked to people about the amazing opportunities and experiences that you have in the Navy. But just to touch, Jessica, I just want to touch on that just a little bit. And I'm sure, Jeff, you would like to share just a little bit about that. So let me check time. So it's 40 after. So if you're just tuning in, or you just joined the slate, I'm here with Jeff Bayless, Veronica Scott, and we just have an open discussion. So if you have any questions, or there's anything that you'd like to add today while you're joining us, please do so. We'll pop you up on your little comments or your questions on the screen, and it's open discussion. So
how come you didn't do this when you said Jeff Bayless?
I did it down here. I did it down here. I did it down here.
I'm messing with you.
I guess so. I know that many of you had seen the advertisement that we put out, and we were going to discuss the previous guests that we had, as well as, the Q&A or open discussion. But today we're just kind of winging it, and we're just talking about whatever comes to mind. So let's go back to the family, the extended family that we have in the Navy. Do you know that after one deployment, and I'll try to make this really quick, right? After one deployment, I had 30 days of leave, right? Was it more than that? About 30 days of leave. And and at the time, like I had 30 days to do whatever it was I wanted, whenever I wanted. Family was doing their own thing. They're like, go whatever you want to do, stay here, go travel or whatnot. So I wanted to put to the test because I heard about like, you know, the AMC flights, MAG flights, and I never really knew how it worked. So what I did was, I was living in San Diego. I went online because they show all the flights, and I said, I'm going to pack a bag. I'm going to go to Hawaii. So I went to Hawaii, got my piece of paper saying that I'm on leave. And I had a seat. I was getting ready to go to Hawaii. I was so excited. I didn't know, honestly, where I was going to stay. I knew that they had a Navy base there, so it wasn't going to be hard to find a place to stay. And I got bumped off.
Oh,
right?
no.
I got bumped off. So the next flight out was going to be in Dover, Delaware. My actual brother is in the Air Force and was stationed in Dover, Delaware. Perfect. I go to Dover, Delaware for a week or so, visit him, and I look at the flights. Where am I going to go next? I have a friend and I put on Facebook a map, and I'm like, hey, where's everybody at? Looking to head out. I'd love to visit somebody and say hi. And a buddy of mine in Germany was like, hey, come visit. We have an extra room on the base. So I flew into Ramstein and hung out there for another week, caught the train and explored. I did the same thing again. And my real brother, who's actually a Marine in Okinawa, was like, come visit us. We just had the baby. So I went to Okinawa. Then I went back. On my way back, I ended up at Hawaii. But all these places I met with extended family, friends that I had in the Navy. And I was just, I came back and I'm like, how awesome, amazing is that I was able to go to all these places. I didn't pay for lodging. I could have, but I didn't have to pay for lodging because everybody wanted me to stay with them. I really just paid for souvenirs and maybe some places I wanted to go try new foods. But you can literally stay at so many different places throughout the world, not just the United States, because of being in the military and all the amazing people and friends that you meet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think what's really important there is, you know, I my first episode on the journey, we talked about tribe, and you know what you're discussing is that connection, right? And we all yearn, we long for a connection. We do. This is why social media is so prevalent, and this is why Zoom is the number one, you know, way for people to connect when they can't connect. I mean, I do think it's always better to connect in person, but now that we're seeing with COVID-19, you know, we need to be a little more responsible with that, you know, as far as, you know, at least until we're through this season or whatever, we get a vaccine or figure that thing out. I'm no expert on the stuff. Actually, I try to ignore the news as much as possible nowadays. But you know, we all crave this tribe. We crave this connection. And I'll just speak for my rate. And I was telling a young sailor at the pharmacy the other day, you know, he's like, well, you know, I wasn't sure if I wanted to strike boatswain or not. And I'm not downing any other rate, but I just said, hey man, you know, if I would tell you the job is hard, I would tell you it's very arduous. I would tell you there's going to be days where you get 3-4 hours of sleep, even though we're really trying to improve the circadian rhythm. But what I can tell you, like, I'm not going to tell you that, you know, our job is the coolest out there. I mean, there are cooler jobs, there are easier jobs, there are harder jobs. But what I will tell you is like this community that we have, this pride and this tradition, and, you know, having the I'm not saying everybody needs to go get a crossed anchors tattoo, but it, you know, there's a esprit de corps, right? There's pride, and that pride stems from professionalism, standards again, and, you know, that community. So it's so important to have some sort of community. And I think in general, the military does give you that opportunity where it's like, you know, I saw a meme not too long ago where it was one sailor, it might've been, you know, one of these Facebook things, but it was like one sailor was saying to the other one, you know, what's up, F word, right? And the other one responded like, you know, with some, you know, we have our own language. I'll keep it PG.
We do. I'll
keep it PG for the followers. But, you know, I mean, you have that instant automatic connection that you're my sister, right? Like, you're my brother. I know if I go to San Diego, I have multiple places I could stay, right? Like, I would not, same thing. And those are lifelong friends that I've gotten in the military. And that's, I mean, maybe I should have been a recruiter, because that, to me, that's like the number one thing. You know, you're going to be a part of a community of people that really genuinely care. Not everyone. I mean, there's an exception to every rule. We are a reflection of society, but understanding that, you know, you're coming into something where you're going to be accepted, and you're going to build relationships that'll last a lifetime. I don't know that when I was 18 years old, I cared as much about conversations and relationships as I do at almost 40. But that is a huge selling point, man. It's really important. Like I have friends all over the world. Yeah. And it's super neat. And it should be highlighted. It shouldn't be understated.
Yes, yes. So basically you summed up in just an amazing way exactly what I said when I was all over the place about I went here, I went there. So
yeah, you did good. I knew exactly what you were saying. You did great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just get so excited and just still in shock, like how that was a possibility from the Navy, from like you mentioned, brothers and sisters, and that's how we address each other too when we're talking to each other, or a text message or whatnot, or even an email, like, "Hey sis, hey, hey brother, thanks brother." So
yeah, definitely, yeah, and that you said the word opportunity, and that's something else that is hard to articulate. All the opportunities that this affords you. I've been to 49 countries, 7 deployments. I've learned multiple skills that I would have never learned. Just something simple as writing evals taught me how to write. I'm writing a book, right? And that you just develop these skills, these soft skills, right? You have hard skills and soft skills. And again, you get all these opportunities out of service. It's hard to even call it service because it's so rewarding. Like you get so much out of it that, it's really just a huge, I just want to shine a light on what you said again. It's a huge opportunity. It really is. Especially for those of us that really didn't have a lot of opportunity, like college really wasn't gonna work for me. Now I have a degree and I'm very, I try to stay in the books and stuff, but at the time it wasn't an option for me. And so, I think it's important to note that, whatever your branch of service is, it's an opportunity. It's not, we get caught up in the mundane and we're like, oh man, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I remind people, no shit, mate, you get to do that. Like you don't have to do anything. You can walk off that brow right now. I'm not going to stop you. I mean, straight up, if you do not want to do that, I'm not harsh about it. I'm very firm. I don't yell at sailors anymore unless it's, in imminent danger. And I don't have time to, explain to them why they need to move. Right. But
yeah,
you don't have to do anything. If you do not want to, get qualified as coxswain, or if you don't want to get qualified in or make your numbers right, or if you don't want to do something, that's fine. I am not here to keep you. Shipmate, cross that brow, pack your stuff, please, so we don't have to mail it to you. And find something that serves you. Because the way I see it, you getting qualified is an opportunity. It's not something you have to do. It's something you get to do. Like this is all opportunity here, man. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think like when you mentioned that just the day-to-day, things that we have to do, we lose sight of that. And especially after time, with years or whatnot, we're doing this job or we're serving in the military and in the Navy, that we forget that. And we don't realize how many people out there wish that they had that opportunity or that they were able to serve, but for whatever reason, they were maybe disqualified, or maybe they have, some kind of medical history that disqualifies them, but all they've ever wished and all they've ever dreamed was to join and serve in the military. And I think sometimes we just take it for granted because we get stuck on that day or that situation or the people that we encounter. And we're like, this person sucks, or this situation sucks, or I got to work late, or, I got to work on the weekends. And we forget that. So that's definitely a good point.
Yeah. What you're talking about is complacency, right? And we talk about that at every safety brief before any amphibious operation or any aviation operation. I mean, I'm just speaking from my expertise, not, whatever we're going to do that's dangerous. We talk about, don't get complacent, right? Keep your head on a swivel, pay attention, be aware. If you're doing something over and over again, and then you get that same feedback loop, right? And this is why it's important to listen to sailors. It's more important to listen than to talk. And I work on that because I'm a talker, but you get complacent because you just, you have these expectations. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about complacency, and that's exactly what it is. And we think about complacency as far as, dangerous evolutions, but it also has to do with your mindset for the opportunity you get to serve in the Navy.
I think, isn't that also what's considered or called like OODA loop? Yeah,
the OODA loop is observe, decide, act, right? I might have missed one there, but yeah, it's the thought process that happens quickly, right?
Yeah.
And then it reaffirms. Mm-hmm.
So we have from Troy Tracy, who says, we need to stop living and leading by a checklist, look outside the box. Everything is an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, like when I go on a podcast, like I used to take notes. These are my notes now. Like, I don't, I might write some, I keep it here because I might write something down. Right. But I totally agree with that. I love checklists for things that I need to do for the day. But as far as leading sailors and, again, you have this end state, but once you reach that end state, there's going to be a new challenge. And so you have to be able to pivot. You have to think like Troy said, you have to think outside the box, and that's hard too, because we get so, I want to say this carefully, because I think doctrine is very important. I'm not advising anyone to go against a tech manual. Don't violate the UCMJ. Don't, I think it's important to be by the book. However,
Sure.
there are times when you're on deployment, you're going to have to I've towed a drug boat that there was no NATO manual for towing this boat. I just had to figure it out, right? Like I made up some jerry rig, bridle tow. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that. I could not say that any better. Everything is an opportunity. A challenge is an opportunity for you to be a part of the solution, right? It's it's not like, oh man, this sucks, and let me just fold inward. I think it's time to go in and out, right? Like this challenge is now an opportunity for me to be a part of the solution.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's where we also get that saying where we use it pretty often, where it's adapt and overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just go ahead and accept it. This is the way it is. And what are we going to do about it? Let's go. Keep it going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I do want to add some color to just keep it going. Right. So yes, the mission does need to continue. Yes. We care about every sailor, and we do want to keep this thing going. Right. We want to ensure that we meet mission. Right. I'm very goal oriented. I think mission is very important, but to the individual, I want to caution, or maybe caution is not the right word, but I just want to add note to, it's okay to take a knee when you need to. Like, we will carry the mission. It may suck that, somebody's going to have to pull your weight for a little while or whatever, but if you come back a better version of you when you went and got, SARP treatment, or when you went and got counseling, or when you got your foot fixed that, had been keeping you from being able to stand watch, whatever. Sure. I think it's important because I did this for a lot of years, not with physical. Well, actually with physical health too, because I was like, oh no, like if I tell them something that disqualifies me for sea duty, then I can't deploy, and then I can't promote. And, I discourage that. I think that it's okay to take a knee so you can come back in the fight stronger than where you were before. We all want that for you, right? It's hard. It's hard when you're the person, you're like, well, I don't want to go talk to a therapist. I don't want to fix it. I've had this thing in my leg, and I can only stand up for an hour.
A lot of us are guilty of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So in reference to that, absolutely 100%. That's also, and so other than that, we figure out ways of doing whatever it is the mission takes, by brainstorming and by having a diverse community, a diverse military, of getting that job or the mission done. So when you say something like that, absolutely 100%. That's the same thing that I didn't learn until later on in my life, to where I never really called out sick before. And as a civilian, I'm a Navy reservist, right, on active duty orders right now. Mm-hmm. But as a civilian, working as a civilian, I've never called out sick. Right? Yeah. I would go in if I really wasn't feeling well, if I had like a little cold, but you don't think about, that's also kind of selfish.
I was going to say that's going to change after COVID. If you're sick and you come to work, people are going to be like, take your butt home.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. But what I learned later on down in life is that, and I will never forget Miss Ann Merritt. I used to work at a juvenile justice facility, and she saw me and she's like, you do not look well. You need to go home. You need to go home right now. We got it. And that's when I was like, okay, they got it. They could do this job without me. It'll still go on. She goes, I just want to say this, and I say this with love, is that the job is still going to be here. The people are still going to be here. You, and again, she said this, I say this with love, you're replaceable. Your job is replaceable. So you're number one, take care of number one, go home. And that taught me that it's okay to take that day or that time off you need to recover for yourself and put yourself first, because one, you're not really good to anybody when you're not 100%, but two, I mean, the world is still going to continue. The world is still going to revolve and still, you know, everything's still going to happen and take place, and it's going to be that it was okay, that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And again, you come back stronger, right? You mentioned something that I want to highlight too, is, you know, you talk about diversity. And that this is a huge one for me. You know, I said earlier on my podcast, I try to keep it very diverse, you know, all over the place with, you know, demographics, right? But, you know, the beauty of there's two things that I think about when I think about diversity. I think about, you know, diversity as far as, you know, your background. You know, you did that whole episode on diversity, right? And that was great. You know, and that, you know, embracing the beauty of diversity is really important. You know, I don't know that it was always that way when I was younger in the Navy, but we're really doing a good job to, you know, embrace the change of accepting and loving different communities. And, you know, we have months dedicated to people in the Navy, right, where we do something on the mess decks, where we celebrate, you know, different communities. And so diversity is great, right? The idea with diversity is that, you know, if you look through a lens, right, and, you know, there's the color spectrum. This is a good analogy, right? Roy G. Biv, right? Well, nobody wants to just see yellow or, you know, yellow and green. We want to see the rainbow, right? We want to see all colors of the spectrum. And so I think what you find with diversity is that you get different input, you get different solutions, right? Because somebody may have grown up where they were a shade tree mechanic, and then you had another guy that, you know, grew up in a very rural area that maybe is not as handy with a wrench, but, you know, can do some other things. You know, just diversity in general is a great benefit to any organization. And then I think that's well understood. And like, I don't even know that I needed to say that, but one thing I do need to say that I think is a lesson that I've learned too is diversity of thought, right? So again, not to violate, you know, doctrine. I'm not encouraging anybody to violate doctrine, but what I am saying is be open-minded, have diversity of thought. If someone brings you an idea that's better than yours, don't hang on to that idea. Like, hey, Chief, I think it'd be cooler if we did it this way. That's a good idea, shipmate. Let's do it that way. Like, that actually is simpler, less dangerous. I'm on board with that. Let's rig it that way. You make sense, shipmate. Thank you. You know, have that diversity of thought. Don't stay stuck in your own ego. You know, I'm a pretty type A guy, right? But, you know, you got to keep that open mind, because somebody may have a better way to do it. And honestly, I used to try to, you know, when I was younger, like a second class or whatever, I used to try to take credit for everything. And then as you evolve, you're like, I don't want any credit. Like, it makes me look good just by what you're doing, man. Like, I'm going to get automatically kudos just for you kicking butt. Like, I don't need it. Like, go kick butt, dude. Like, that's awesome. You accomplished that. You had a great idea that impacted, you know, the ship or, you know, whatever that mission is. So yeah, sorry. I was, diversity is huge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that, I love that we are putting that out there on these platforms and all these platforms and your podcast, because these are lessons that we learned that people don't have to go through.
Hopefully.
You know, hopefully not. I know growing up myself, I was like, I know the stove is hot, but let me touch it and see how hot it is, you know?
Yeah, but everybody did that, right? Do you know anybody that didn't touch the stove? I did. I burned my hands so bad. Like, everybody does that, right?
Yeah. Or how long can I hold I know you said it's hot and I'm gonna burn myself. Let me see how long it takes.
Yeah. Why do we do that?
Because we want to see for ourselves. But I think I think with time you realize that, ooh, I could take a shortcut. I could take a shortcut by learning from somebody else. Yeah. You know? So
I caution I agree with you. I caution the shortcut, but it's actually it's not a shortcut. It's a more expeditious and efficient way to go through life, right?
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
A shortcut means like, and I don't like hacks either. Like, I don't want to be too, but
hey, I like some hacks. Depends on what it is. So everything it depends on. So when I say shortcut, I'm talking about it could save you the heartache. It can save you time. I'm all about time. So I'm like, man, that could have saved me time if I would have known X, Y, Z. You know?
Absolutely.
But some we do. We absolutely need to go through those. And I feel like that we are placed in certain positions or people in our life to learn from, or situations that we have to go through, whether it's bad or good, to come out, like you had mentioned, to come out stronger, right?
Yeah,
to come out better.
It's the hero's journey. You know, I mean, it's classic. You see it in every movie, in every book, in everybody's life. You know, everybody has a hero's journey. And, you know, my struggles are my traumas are my traumas, but, you know, maybe my cup was 16 ounces and yours is 32, you know, and It just hit the fill. It was full, right? Like I had reached that level where it was full, right? And so you never discredit someone else's struggle. But yeah, I think it's important for the individual to understand that there are going to be challenges. And then, like you said, you're going to come out on the other side way better. Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw up there that Master Chief Carpio says, "Who y'all leaders?" And then I have a fraternal twin sister, everybody. No, not many people, very few, maybe a handful know that I do, but that's my fraternal twin sister. Thank you, Vanessa. I love you too.
That's cool.
Out in California. And then Troy also mentions again that you made a great point. The more buy-in you receive from your team, the more successful you will be.
Oh yeah. Everybody wants buy-in. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of the community. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be understood. Everybody wants to know. This is really important. When you're doing something, it's good to make sure that everybody knows the whole concept, right? So if you're going through a training phase or whatever, I've gotten to points where I'll ask the sailors, I'm like, do you even understand what's going on? Or somebody just tell you to be here? Like, yeah, I was just told to be here. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, that's horrible. Like, I feel sorry for you, man. Let me explain everything to you. Like, this is exactly why. This is, we're going to qualify in this warfare area, and we need you to do this role, right? So that, we're going to have this evolution, and then we're going to do this training, and then there's going to be some paperwork. There's going to be a quiz, and but everybody wants buy-in, and part of that is having these conversations. I got asked one time, is it ever too much conversation? And I don't think it is. I don't think there's ever too much conversation you can have with sailors. It's really about, unless it's dangerous, or unless you got to go talk to the captain, or like Master Chief had to talk to someone today, right? I mean, there are times when you're not going to be able to make those conversations, but not do it just because you don't think they warrant or that they're not worthy of understanding the big picture. The very lowest leader, and I say leader because we're all leaders, even E1, you're a leader of something, right? And so even the lowest pay grade leader needs to have buy-in, understand what's going on so they can give you the best that they have. Like that's only helping me, man. If you know what's up, like that's helping me. Like that's less I got to do, right? I don't have to, once I've explained it to you, you have buy-in, you're motivated. I'll just sit back and let you do it, man. I'll go get some coffee and come back and inspect later.
Definitely. You, I think really importantly, you just have that reason why. Like we always talk about whatever it is that you're going through in life, why you're doing what you're doing, when it gets tough, when it gets hard, when you're not understanding. Like if you have your why, you can surpass a lot of things. So definitely great point.
I know you guys quote Simon Sinek a lot, and he, start with why. And it's very important. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's Master Chief Rodney's favorite leadership book, those quotes, and mentor as well. And then Justin Ball, thank you for tuning in with us. And he mentions that I like diversity of thought, knowing and accepting that you are not the smartest person in the room because you never are.
Yeah, there's always somebody bigger and badder than you, right? And diversity of thought, that was a hard one. It wasn't hard for me to understand, but that was really a great it was kind of a wow moment for me when I was like, well, yeah, but there's also, there's diversity in people, but there's also diversity of thought, and I can embody that within myself, right? And in my own shadow work. I don't know if anybody, like with anything you have, there's a shadow of that, right? So, you may have this good intention to do something, but then you might have this, it's kind of like yin and yang. Maybe you have like 70% of this is good intention, but in the shadows, maybe 30% is like, well, if I can make money on this, that would be great. Or if I can get a Navy comm out of this, that would be great, right? I'm going to do this great thing, but if I get an award or an eval, that's shadows, right? So with everything, there's some sort of shadow. The goal is to minimize the shadow, right? But it's impossible because we're human beings and we're all flawed, right? So with everything, you have somewhat of a shadow, and the idea is to reduce that shadow. But with all of that, you can do that introspective work. You can look inward, and then you can understand that you can have diversity of thought of your own, right? And also welcome others.
I haven't heard about the shadow before. We'll have to talk a little bit more about that another time.
Sure. Yeah. Shadow work's good. It's not like you can even fix it. It's just that you can understand it and then move through it, right? This is something that is in my shadow from this action that I'm doing. Like I would love for my podcast to grow to 1 million followers. I would love that. I would think that was great. It'd be a lot of imposter syndrome that I'm dealing with, but if it impacted that many people in a good way, that would be great, right? It's not about me. It's about everybody else. But if I'm being honest, there's a little bit of shadow in there where I'm like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Like, there's a little shadow in there where I'm like, yeah, even if I didn't make money on it, but like, That would be cool. Like if I'm walking down the street, someone's like, hey, you're that guy that I listened to that podcast. It saved my life. That would be really cool. Like it's rewarding, right? I'm getting
Oh,
validation.
yeah. Oh my gosh. So that's like when I do training and social media training, I always talk about, I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, and he talks about being the mayor of your town. And I'm like, that was my mindset coming into recruiting and doing social media. And I wanted to be known as, oh, aren't you that recruiter that, that's what I want to be known as. So I guess you can call it a shadow, but that's what I want to be.
There's nothing wrong with it as long as it's in a healthy place and your intentions are grounded, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm now looking at the time, and this is almost one of the longest time frames that we've actually had this. No, because you and I, we could go back and forth, and we could continue talking. And I love everything that our entire conversation. And I hope that our viewers out there were able to get something from anything that was said that we mentioned. And we appreciate you tuning in with us. And Jeff, thank you. AKA Chief Bayless, thank you for tuning in with me. Even though it was last minute, I greatly appreciate you. We've got to get you back on the show because there's so many other topics that we can discuss. And I just want to say thank you so much. And you may sit there and say, I just talk, but it's great conversation. And what you have to say, at least in my opinion, us together here, as it's some great insight. It's educational. And I just love hearing from your experience and your background and your take on things. So thank you for sharing with us today.
I received that. That means a lot to me, and I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. And it's great. Anytime I can be of service, you just let me know. However, just hit me up. You got my number.
All right, I definitely will do. I got it handy. Cool. So for those of you who tuned in, again, thank you so much. Join us next week. We have a great surprise for you, somebody big in the chain of command you don't want to miss out. So take a look on Monday. Be on the lookout for Monday. We're going to post that so that way you know who to expect this coming up Friday as well. And we wish you all a happy weekend, a safe weekend, wherever you may be, even if it's raining, it's kind of gloomy outside. We hope that you have a little bit of sunshine wherever you're at. So have a great weekend. And again, thank you all for tuning in.
All right. Peace. Thanks.